The sound of shattering glass marked the moment Roselyn Zimmerman's life fell apart, though by the time she heard it, everything she had ever known was already burning to ash behind her. She stumbled into Fort Bowie, Arizona Territory, on a scorching afternoon in July of 1878, her dress torn and dust-covered, her dark hair escaping its pins in wild tangles around her face. The small frontier town shimmered in the heat, and Roselyn could barely focus on the rough wooden buildings lining the single main street. Her feet, blistered and bleeding through her worn boots, carried her forward only through sheer force of will. She had been walking for 3 days since the ranch hands had turned on her father, since they had taken everything, since she had watched her family's homestead disappear in flames while she hid in the root cellar like a coward. The general store seemed like salvation, its porch offering shade and a place to collapse. Roselyn sank onto the wooden steps, her vision swimming with dark spots. She pressed her forehead against her knees, trying to catch her breath, trying not to think about her father's face, trying not to remember the gunshots. Miss, are you all right?" The voice cut through her haze, deep and concerned. Roselyn lifted her head slowly, squinting against the bright sunlight to see a tall figure standing over her. As her eyes adjusted, she made out a man in his mid-20s, broad-shouldered beneath a worn cotton shirt, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Kind eyes, she thought distantly. Gray-blue like storm clouds over the mountains. Her voice came out as a croak, her lips were cracked and dry, her throat burning. "Water, Jesus," the man muttered, already moving. He disappeared into the general store and returned moments later with a canteen, kneeling beside her on the steps. "Here, drink slowly. Not too fast or you will make yourself sick." Roselyn took the canteen with shaking hands and sipped carefully, though everything in her wanted to gulp it down. The water was warm but tasted like heaven. She drank until he gently pulled the canteen away. "Easy now," he said. "Let that settle, then you can have more. When did you last eat?" "I do not remember." The words came out barely above a whisper. She looked at him properly now, taking in the concerned furrow of his brow, the strong jaw dusted with a few days' worth of stubble, the way he crouched beside her with unconscious grace. "Thank you. What happened to you?" He studied her torn dress, the bruises on her arms, the haunted look in her green eyes. "Are you hurt? Do you need a doctor?" Roselyn shook her head, though the movement made her dizzy. "No doctor can fix what's broken. You are not making much sense, miss." His voice remained gentle, patient. "Let me help you. My name is James Irving. I own a ranch about 5 miles north of here. Whatever trouble you are in, we can sort it out." "There's nothing to sort out." Roselyn felt the words bubble up, spilling out before she could stop them. "They killed my father, burned everything. Took the cattle, the horses, everything of value. I hid like a coward while they murdered him, and now I have nothing. Nothing." The man, James, went very still. "Who did this?" "The ranch hands he trusted." Bitterness laced her voice. "Men he fed, paid fairly, treated with respect. They wanted the land, wanted to sell it to some railroad company. Papa refused, so they—" She could not finish the sentence. James's jaw tightened. "Where was your ranch?" "About 30 miles southwest. The Zimmerman place." She laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "Was the Zimmerman place. Now it is just ashes and bones. Lord Almighty." James sat down fully on the steps beside her, his expression grim. "I knew your father, not well, but we met a few times at cattle auctions. He was a good man, honest. I am so sorry." Roselyn felt tears prick at her eyes but refused to let them fall. She had cried herself dry over the past 3 days, stumbling through the desert, hiding from riders on the road, terrified that the men who killed her father would come looking for witnesses. Sorry does not bring him back. Sorry does not give me back my home. No, James agreed quietly, but you are alive. That counts for something. Does it? She turned to look at him, this stranger offering kindness when the world had shown her only cruelty. I have nothing. No family, no home, no money. I do not even know why I kept walking, why I did not just lie down in the desert and let it take me. James met her gaze steadily. Because you are stronger than you think. Because your father would want you to survive. Because giving up is not in your nature, or you would not have made it this far. You do not know anything about my nature. The words came out sharper than she intended. Maybe not, he acknowledged. But I know desperation when I see it, and I know a fighter. You walked 30 miles through Apache territory in July. That takes strength. Roselyn looked away, back toward the dusty street where a few townspeople were starting to notice them. I whispered to myself that I had lost everything, she said softly. Over and over while I walked. Everything is gone. Everything. James stood and extended his hand to her. Then I guess you just found me. She stared at his outstretched hand, this lifeline offered by a stranger. Why would you help me? You do not know me. Your father was a good man. That makes you worth helping in my book. His hand remained steady, waiting. Besides, my ranch is short-handed. We lost 2 cowboys last month to a silver strike-up in Tombstone. If you are willing to work, I can offer you a job, room, and board. Nothing fancy, but it is honest. I do not know anything about working a ranch, Roselyn admitted. You grew up on one, did you not? When she nodded, he continued, Then you know more than most. We will figure out the rest. What do you say? She looked at his hand again, then up at his face. There was no pity in his expression, no calculation, just genuine concern and an offer of help. Slowly she reached out and placed her hand in his. His palm was warm and calloused, his grip firm but gentle as he helped her to her feet. I do not have much choice, she said. There is always a choice. James steadied her when she swayed, his other hand coming to her elbow. You could go to the church, ask for charity. You could try to find work in town, but I am offering you a fair deal. Honest work for honest pay. What you do with that opportunity is up to you. Roselyn realized her hand was still in his and pulled away, suddenly self-conscious. I must look a fright. You look like someone who has been through hell. He picked up the canteen and offered it to her again. Finish this while I get my horse and wagon. I came into town for supplies, but that can wait. Let me get you to the ranch, get you fed and cleaned up. Then we can talk properly about the work. He started toward the hitching post, then paused and turned back. What is your name? I should probably know that. Roselyn Zimmerman. Well, Miss Zimmerman, I promise you are safe now. Whatever happened before, whatever you lost, you have my word that nobody will hurt you while you are under my protection. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust in the conviction in his voice. But trust had been shattered along with everything else. Still, she nodded, because what else could she do? James Irving was offering her a chance to survive, and survival was all she had left. He returned shortly with a sturdy wagon pulled by 2 brown horses, and helped her onto the bench seat with surprising gentleness. As they rolled out of Fort Bowie, heading north into the hills, Roselyn tried to process everything that had happened. 3 days ago, she had been the daughter of a successful rancher, with a future that seemed secure if not exciting. Now she was a hired hand, homeless and alone, dependent on the charity of a stranger. Tell me about your ranch, she said, more to break the oppressive silence than from real curiosity. James glanced at her, seeming pleased that she was making conversation. The Broken Arrow. My father started it 20 years ago, built it up from nothing. He died 4 years back, left it to me. We run about 500 head of cattle, have good water from a creek that runs year-round. The house is not much, but it is solid. There is a bunkhouse for the hands, A barn, corrals. It is a working ranch, nothing fancy. How many people work for you? Besides me. 3 full-time hands now. Miguel has been with us since my father's time, knows the land better than anyone. Then there is Charlie, came up from Texas 2 years ago. And Robert, who is young but eager to learn. We had 2 others, but like I said, they caught silver fever. Roselyn watched the landscape roll past, all scrub brush and red rocks, mountains rising in the distance. It was beautiful in a harsh way, this Arizona territory, different from the rolling grasslands where she had grown up. "And you want me to do what exactly?" "Whatever you are capable of," James said. "We need help with everything. Cooking for the hands, tending the vegetable garden, mending, washing. If you can ride, we could use help moving cattle. If you can keep books, that would be a blessing because I hate doing accounts. If you have other skills, we will find a use for them." "My mother taught me to cook and sew before she died," Roselyn said slowly. "I can ride well enough. I used to help my father with the account books." "Then you will earn your keep and then some." James expertly guided the wagon around a rough patch in the road. "The wage is $30 a month plus room and board. I know that is not much, but it is fair for this area. $30 a month. Before, that would have seemed like nothing. Now it represented independence, survival. That is generous. It is what the work is worth." He shot her a quick look. "You will earn it, Miss Zimmerman. I am not offering charity. I am offering work." She appreciated the distinction. "Call me Roselyn. If I am going to be your employee, we should probably drop the formalities." "Roselyn," he repeated, and she liked the way her name sounded in his deep voice. "Then you should call me James, or just boss, like the other hands do." "James suits you better," she said without thinking, then felt heat rise to her cheeks. But he just smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face. "James it is, then." They rode in companionable silence for a while, and Roselyn felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. The rhythmic creak of the wagon, the clip-clop of the horses' hooves, the vast blue sky overhead, it was all so normal, so far removed from the horror of 3 days ago. She found herself watching James from the corner of her eye, noting the capable way he handled the team, the easy set of his shoulders, the way he scanned the horizon constantly, alert but not anxious. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "Just habit." Apache raids have been less common since the Army established Fort Bowie, but they still happen. Cattle rustlers, too. A man learns to pay attention out here. "Were you born in Arizona?" "California originally. My father moved us here when I was 12, after my mother passed. He wanted a fresh start, I think. Somewhere she had never been, so he would not see her ghost around every corner." James's voice went soft with memory. "He built the Broken Arrow from nothing, just him and me and a couple of hired men. Nearly killed us both that first year, but we made it work." "You must miss him." "Every day. But I like to think he would be proud of what I have done with the place. We are doing better than we ever did when he was alive. More cattle, better stock, fair reputation." He paused. "What about you? Any other family besides your father?" Roselyn shook her head. "My mother died when I was 10, influenza. After that it was just Papa and me. He never remarried, said he could never love anyone the way he loved her. I used to think that was romantic. Now I wonder if it was just lonely." "Maybe both," James suggested. "Love and loneliness are not always separate things." She looked at him with new interest. "That is surprisingly philosophical for a rancher. My mother was a school teacher. She believed in education, made sure I could read and write and think. My father used to joke that she gave me a mind too big for ranch work." He smiled at the memory. "But I love this life. I love the land, the cattle, the work. It is honest and real in a way that nothing else is." "I used to love it too," Roselyn admitted. "Before." "You will again," James said with such certainty that she almost believed him. "It takes time to heal from something like what you have been through, but you will find your way back." The ranch came into view as they crested a rise, and Roselyn leaned forward to get a better look. It was just as James had described it, a solid house with a covered porch, a large barn, several corrals, and a long, low building that must be the bunkhouse. A creek glinted silver in the afternoon sun, and she could see cattle dotting the hillsides. It was not grand, but it looked prosperous and well-maintained. "Home," James said simply. As they pulled into the yard, 3 men emerged from various buildings. James introduced them quickly. Miguel, a weathered Mexican man in his 50s with kind eyes and a reserved smile; Charlie, a lanky Texan who could not have been more than 22; and Robert, a freckled youth who looked barely 18. "This is Roselyn Zimmerman," James told them as he helped her down from the wagon. "She is going to be working for us. Her family's ranch was attacked, and she needs a place to stay. I expect you all to treat her with respect and make her feel welcome." Miguel tipped his hat. "Welcome, Miss Zimmerman. I am sorry for your loss." Charlie and Robert echoed the sentiment, though Robert could not seem to stop staring. Roselyn supposed she must look wild and desperate, covered in dust and wearing a torn dress. "Thank you," she managed. "I appreciate the opportunity to work here." "Miguel, can you show her to the spare room in the house?" James asked. "And see if you can find her some clean clothes. Maybe something of my mother's from the trunk in the attic." "Of course, boss." Miguel gestured for Roselyn to follow him. "This way, miss." The house was larger inside than it looked from the outside, with a spacious main room that served as both kitchen and sitting area, and 3 doors leading to what she assumed were bedrooms. Miguel led her to one of these, opening the door to reveal a small but clean room with a bed, a dresser, and a washstand. "It is not much," Miguel said apologetically, "but the bed is comfortable and you will have privacy." "It is perfect," Roselyn said honestly. After 3 nights sleeping on the ground, the bed looked like paradise. "Thank you, Miguel. I will get you those clothes and some water for washing. There is a bathing room out back if you want a proper bath later. Dinner is usually at sundown. Do you need anything else right now?" "Just the clothes and water, thank you." When he left, Roselyn sank onto the bed, her legs finally giving out. The events of the day of the past 3 days crashed over her all at once. She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking, but still, no tears came. She was too exhausted even to cry properly. A knock at the door made her straighten up quickly. "Come in." Miguel entered with an armful of clothes and a pitcher of water. "These belonged to James's mother. She was about your size, I think. There are a couple of dresses, some undergarments, and a pair of trousers if you need them for riding. I will leave you to clean up. Take your time." After he left, Roselyn stripped off her ruined dress and washed as best she could with the basin of water. Her body was covered in bruises and scrapes from her journey, but nothing serious, nothing that would not heal. She chose one of the dresses, a simple blue cotton that fit reasonably well, and braided her long, dark hair to keep it out of the way. Looking at herself in the small mirror above the dresser, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Her face was thinner, harder somehow. Her eyes held shadows that had not been there a week ago. She looked like a survivor, she thought. Like someone who had lost everything and kept walking anyway. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Roselyn, it is James. Are you decent?" "Yes, come in." He entered carrying a tray with a bowl of stew, fresh bread, and a cup of water. "I thought you might be too tired to come out for dinner." Miguel made his famous beef stew. The smell hit her, and her stomach cramped with sudden hunger. "That is very kind, thank you." James set the tray on the small table by the window. "Eat slowly. You have been without food for too long." He hesitated, then added, "I sent word to the sheriff in Fort Bowie about what happened to your father. They will investigate, though I will be honest, justice moves slowly out here if it comes at all." Roselyn picked up the spoon, her hand trembling slightly. "I can describe the men who did it. Their names, their faces, for whatever good that does. Write it all down when you feel able, every detail you remember, it might help." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is soon enough to start worrying about work. Tonight just recover. James." He turned back and she met his eyes. "Why are you really doing this? The truth." He was quiet for a long moment. "Because when my mother died, we had neighbors who brought food, who helped with the funeral, who made sure my father and I did not fall apart completely. And when my father died, it was the people of this territory who kept me going, who reminded me that I was not alone. I am just paying that forward." "That is a good answer," Roselyn said softly. "It is the truth." He smiled slightly. "Sleep well, Roselyn Zimmerman." After he left, she ate the stew slowly, savoring every bite. It was rich and hearty, seasoned perfectly, and she could feel strength returning to her body with each mouthful. When she finished, she lay down on the bed, still wearing the borrowed dress, and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. She woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of men's voices outside. For a moment, she could not remember where she was, and panic seized her. Then memory returned. Fort Bowie, James Irving, the Broken Arrow Ranch. Safe. She was safe. Rising, she found a basin of fresh water waiting outside her door, along with a note in neat handwriting. "Take your time this morning. Come out when you are ready. James." Roselyn washed and dressed, this time choosing the trousers and a simple shirt. If she was going to work on a ranch, she might as well dress practically. Her reflection showed someone who looked more put together, more in control. She pinned her hair up securely and stepped out into the main room. James was at the large wooden table, surrounded by papers and ledgers, a cup of coffee at his elbow. He looked up when she entered, and something flickered in his eyes, appreciation, maybe, or just acknowledgement. "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in days." She gestured to the trousers. "I hope you do not mind. They are more practical for working." "My mother used to wear trousers all the time, scandalized the neighbors." He grinned. "There is coffee on the stove and biscuits in the basket. Help yourself." The coffee was strong and hot, the biscuits still warm. Roselyn sat across from James, cradling the cup in both hands. "What are you working on?" "Supply orders and account reconciliation. My least favorite part of running this place." He rubbed his eyes tiredly. "Numbers blur together after a while." "I could help with that if you like. I am good with numbers." James looked at her with interest. "Really? That would be a tremendous help. I have been putting this off for weeks. Show me your system and I will see what I can do." For the next hour, James walked her through his bookkeeping, which was functional but disorganized. Roselyn could see immediately where things could be improved, and she said so. To his credit, James did not take offense. Instead, he looked relieved. "If you can make sense of this mess, I will consider you worth twice what I am paying you," he said. "I hate paperwork. Give me cattle and horses and hard physical labor any day." "Everyone has their strengths," Roselyn said, already organizing the papers into more logical stacks. "This is one of mine." "What are your other strengths?" James asked, leaning back in his chair and watching her work. She considered the question seriously. "I am a good shot. My father taught me to handle a rifle when I was 12. I can sew almost anything. I have a good memory for faces and names. And I am stubborn. Papa used to say I could out-stubborn a mule." James laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Stubbornness is a useful trait out here. You will fit right in." They worked together through the morning, falling into an easy rhythm. James would explain the context of various transactions, and Roselyn would organize them, spot errors, and suggest better ways to track expenses. It was comfortable, almost companionable, and Roselyn found herself relaxing in a way she had not expected. Around midday, Miguel appeared with lunch: cold chicken, cheese, bread, and apples. They ate while continuing to work, and Roselyn became aware that this felt almost normal. Not the raw grief of losing her father, not the terror of her flight through the desert, but this working alongside someone capable, being useful, having purpose. "Tell me about the cattle operation," she said, reaching for another piece of bread. "What are your biggest challenges?" James's face lit up the way it had not when discussing bookkeeping. "Water, always water. The creek is reliable, but in drought years we have to move the herd to higher pastures. Predators: 2 mountain lions, wolves, the occasional bear, and rustlers, though we have been lucky so far. The real challenge is getting the cattle to market. We drive them to the railroad at Tucson twice a year, and it is hard, dangerous work." "When is the next drive?" "September, about 2 months from now. We will take about 200 head. It is a week there and a week back, plus time at the railhead." He studied her thoughtfully. "You could stay here with Miguel while the rest of us go. Someone needs to keep the home place running. Or I could come with you," Roselyn suggested. "I can ride and rope. I might not be as strong as your cowboys, but I could pull my weight." James frowned. "It is dangerous. Long days in the saddle, river crossings, stampedes. Last year, Charlie nearly drowned crossing the Gila when his horse went down." "I did not come here to hide behind safe walls," Roselyn said firmly. "I came here to work. If you trust me to do this job, trust me to do all of it." Something in her tone made James reconsider. "We will see how you do over the next month. If you can prove yourself, I will think about it." "Fair enough." They spent the afternoon with Roselyn familiarizing herself with the ranch. James showed her the barn, where a dozen horses nickered in their stalls, the hen house with its fat, clucking chickens, the vegetable garden that needed weeding, and the spring house where milk and butter were kept cool. Everywhere they went, he explained how things worked, what needed to be done, what problems to watch for. Charlie and Robert were out with the cattle, but they encountered Miguel near the barn. The older man was checking a horse's hoof, his experienced hands gentle but firm. "Miguel is the best horseman I have ever seen," James told Roselyn. "He can gentle the wildest Mustang, cure almost any horse ailment. If you want to learn to really ride, he is the one to teach you." Miguel looked pleased but embarrassed by the praise. "The boss exaggerates." "But I would be happy to work with you, Miss Roselyn, if you wish to improve your riding." "I would appreciate that," Roselyn said. "And please, just Roselyn. I am a hired hand, not a fine lady." "You are a lady regardless of your employment," Miguel said with old-fashioned courtesy. "But I will call you Roselyn if you prefer." That evening, they all ate together at the long table in the main house: James, Roselyn, Miguel, Charlie, and Robert. It was a lively meal, with the cowboys trading stories about cattle and horses, Miguel occasionally correcting exaggerations, and James adding dry commentary. Roselyn found herself laughing at Charlie's tale of trying to rope a particularly ornery steer and ending up dragged through a mud puddle. "You should have seen him," Robert chimed in, grinning. "Covered head to toe in mud, and the steer just stood there watching like he planned the whole thing." "That steer is the devil," Charlie declared. "Mark my words, he is plotting against us all." After dinner, Roselyn offered to do the washing up, and James helped her carry dishes to the kitchen area. They worked side by side, she washing and he drying, and Roselyn was struck by how domestic it felt. This man who owned the ranch, who could have ordered any of his hands to do this work, was standing beside her with a dish towel carefully drying plates. "You do not have to help," she said. "This is my job." "My hands are not too good to wash dishes," James replied. "Besides, it goes faster with two people." "Is that really why, or do you not trust me to do it right?" She was teasing, testing to see how he would respond. James smiled. "I trust you just fine. I am here because I want to be." The words hung in the air between them, carrying more weight than a simple statement about dishwashing should. Roselyn felt her heart beat a little faster and concentrated very hard on scrubbing a pot. "How are you really doing?" James asked quietly. Not the polite answer you give when people ask. "The truth." Roselyn was silent for a long moment, considering. "I feel like I am walking through a dream, like none of this is real. My father is dead, I should be devastated, broken. And I am, but I also just keep moving forward because what else can I do? Sometimes I think the grief will hit me all at once and destroy me. Other times I feel nothing at all, just numb." "That is normal," James said. "When my father died, I was numb for weeks. I did all the things I was supposed to do, organized the funeral, kept the ranch running, accepted condolences, but I felt like I was watching someone else do it. Then one day, about a month later, I was out checking fence line, and I saw this view he always loved. Mountains in the distance, sunset turning everything gold, and I just broke down, cried like a child. After that, it started to get easier." "Did it ever stop hurting?" "No," James said honestly. "But the hurt changes. It becomes something you can carry instead of something that crushes you." Roselyn blinked back tears. "Thank you for being honest." "Always," he promised. Over the next few weeks, Roselyn settled into the rhythm of ranch life. She rose before dawn to help Miguel with breakfast, spent mornings on bookkeeping and mending, and afternoons learning whatever new skills someone was willing to teach her. Miguel showed her how to gentle a skittish horse, using patience and soft words instead of force. Charlie taught her to throw a rope with deadly accuracy. Robert, who despite his youth was an excellent shot, helped her improve her aim with both rifle and pistol. And James was there through it all, watching her prove herself, offering quiet encouragement, occasionally jumping in to demonstrate a technique or save her from her own overconfidence. "You are leaning too far forward," he said one afternoon when she was practicing roping fence posts. He moved behind her, his hands coming to her shoulders to adjust her posture. "Keep your weight balanced. The rope should be an extension of your arm, not something you throw with your whole body." Roselyn was intensely aware of his proximity, the warmth of his hands through her shirt, the smell of leather and sage that seemed to cling to him. "Like this. Exactly like that. Now try again." She threw, and the loop settled perfectly over the post. "I did it, you did." He had not moved away, and when she turned her head, his face was very close to hers. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then James stepped back, clearing his throat. "Keep practicing. You are getting good at this." Roselyn told herself the disappointment she felt was ridiculous. James was her employer, nothing more. He had given her a job when she desperately needed one, had been kind and patient and generous. Reading anything else into his actions would be foolish. But she could not help noticing the way his eyes followed her when he thought she was not looking, or how he always seemed to find reasons to work near wherever as she was. The way he laughed at her jokes, really laughed, his whole face transforming. The careful way he treated her, like she was something precious that might break. One evening, about a month after her arrival, Roselyn was in the vegetable garden pulling weeds when James found her. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the air had finally cooled from the brutal heat of the day. "You have been out here for hours," he said, sitting on the fence rail. Miguel said dinner is almost ready. I am almost done. This garden was in terrible shape. She sat back on her heels, pushing a strand of hair from her face and likely leaving a dirt smudge. When was the last time anyone weeded it properly? Probably never. We mostly just planted things and hoped they grew. James grinned. We are cattlemen, not farmers. It shows. But she was smiling too. Give me another week, and I will have this producing properly. Fresh vegetables instead of whatever Miguel can get in town. You do not have to do all this, James said. The bookkeeping alone is worth your wages. I like being busy. It keeps me from thinking too much. Roselyn stood, brushing dirt from her trousers. Besides, I enjoy growing things. My mother had a beautiful garden. She taught me which plants grow well together, how to keep the bugs away naturally. It is nice to use that knowledge again. James was quiet for a moment, just watching her in the fading light. You are doing really well here. Better than I hoped when I brought you home that first day. Was there doubt? She tried to make it sound light, teasing. Not doubt exactly, more concern. You had been through something terrible, and I worried that ranch work might be too hard, that you might need time to heal first. He paused. But you are stronger than I gave you credit for. I am not strong, Roselyn said quietly. I am just doing what needs to be done to survive. That is exactly what strength is. James hopped down from the fence, landing beside her. Doing what needs to be done even when it is hard, even when you are scared or hurting. You have that in abundance. They were standing close together now, the garden forgotten. Roselyn could see flecks of darker blue in his gray-blue eyes, the fine lines at the corners from squinting in the sun. He was handsome, she realized, though not in a conventional way. His features were too rugged, too weathered by outdoor living. But there was something compelling about him, something solid and real. James, she began, not sure what she was going to say. I know, he said softly. I feel it too. Feel what? This thing between us. This pull. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away and tuck that loose strand of hair behind her ear. I tried to ignore it, told myself you were my employee, that you had just been through trauma and needed time. But Roselyn, I cannot stop thinking about you. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he must hear it. I think about you too, all the time. We should probably be sensible about this, James said, his hand still cupping her cheek. Take things slow. Probably, Roselyn agreed. Neither of them moved to step away. The air between them felt charged, electric. Roselyn could feel the roughness of his calloused palm against her skin, the warmth of his body so close to hers. I am going to kiss you now, James said, his voice rough. If you do not want me to, say so. Instead of answering, Roselyn rose on her toes and closed the distance between them. His lips met hers, gentle at first, almost questioning. Then she pressed closer, her hands coming up to his chest, and the kiss deepened. He tasted like coffee and something sweet, and his arms came around her, pulling her against him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Roselyn felt dizzy. Oh indeed. James rested his forehead against hers. I have wanted to do that for weeks. Why did you wait? Because I wanted you to be sure. I did not want you to feel obligated or confused or like I was taking advantage. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. Roselyn, what I feel for you has nothing to do with being your employer. You could leave tomorrow, and I would still feel this way. I need you to know that. I am not going anywhere, she said firmly. This place, this life, it feels right in a way nothing has in a long time. Like maybe I was meant to lose everything so I could find this. You found me, James said, echoing his words from that first day, or I found you. Either way, I am keeping you if you will let me. Roselyn kissed him again, softer this time. I am not going anywhere. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and if the other hands noticed the change between them, they were polite enough not to comment. But Miguel caught Roselyn's eye during dinner and winked, and she knew their secret was not secret at all. That night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Roselyn sat on the porch, looking up at the stars. She heard footsteps and knew without looking that it was James. He sat beside her, not touching, just keeping her company in the cool darkness. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "My father, how he would have liked you." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "He always said I should marry someone who worked with his hands, who understood the land. Someone honest and kind. Is that what we are talking about, marriage?" There was no alarm in James's voice, just curiosity. "Eventually, maybe, if things continue like this." Roselyn turned to look at him. "I know it has only been a month. I know we should probably take more time. But I have learned that life is short and unpredictable. When you find something good, something real, you should hold on to it." James took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "I agree completely. I am not a man who plays games or takes relationships lightly. If we do this, I am all in. Completely committed. So am I. Then we will take it one day at a time and see where it leads. No pressure, no expectations beyond honesty and respect." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "Sound good? Perfect." Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened in small, everyday ways. James started joining her in the garden after dinner, helping her water and weed while they talked about their days. She would sit with him in his office while he did paperwork, occasionally offering advice, but mostly just enjoying his company. They took rides together in the early mornings, exploring the ranch, and James showed her his favorite spots: a high meadow where wildflowers bloomed, a rocky outcrop with a view for miles, a quiet pool in the creek where the water rang crystal clear. They did not hide their relationship from the ranch hands, but they kept displays of affection private. Still, everyone knew. Charlie teased James mercilessly about being sweet on the bookkeeper, and Robert turned bright red whenever he accidentally walked in on them holding hands. Miguel just smiled his knowing smile and made Roselyn's favorite foods for dinner one afternoon. About 2 months after Roselyn's arrival, James announced it was time to start preparing for the cattle drive. The date was set for mid-September, and there was much to do. "I still want to come," Roselyn told him as they sat in his office reviewing supplies. "I can help. You know I can." James sighed. He had been avoiding this conversation, but clearly it could not be delayed any longer. "It is not about whether you can help. Of course you can. But it is 2 weeks on the trail, hard riding, sleeping on the ground. River crossings that can go wrong in a heartbeat. What if something happens to you?" "What if something happens to you?" Roselyn countered. "Should you stay behind because the drive is dangerous? That is different." "Why?" "Because I am a woman," she crossed her arms. "I can ride as well as any of your hands now. Miguel said so himself. I can rope, I can shoot, I can work all day without complaint. What more do I need to prove? Nothing. You have proven yourself a dozen times over." James ran his hand through his hair in frustration. "But Roselyn, if something happened to you, if you got hurt or worse, I could not bear it. I love you too much to risk losing you." The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. "You love me." Roselyn's voice was soft. James met her eyes. "Yes, I love you. I have for weeks, maybe since the day I found you on those steps in Fort Bowie. I know it is fast. I know we should probably wait longer to say it, but it is true. I love you, Roselyn Zimmerman." She stood and walked around the desk, sitting on his lap and cupping his face in her hands. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes. And that is exactly why I need to go on this drive. I am not some fragile thing that needs protecting. I am your partner, and partners face dangers together." James pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I cannot lose you. You will not. I am careful and I am capable. Trust me." He was quiet for a long time, just holding her. Finally, he sighed. "Fine, you can come, but you stay close to me or Miguel at all times during river crossings. And if anything looks dangerous, you listen when I tell you to fall back." "Agreed, agreed." She kissed him soundly. "Thank you for trusting me." "I do trust you. It is the rest of the world I do not trust." Preparations for the drive consumed the next 2 weeks. They culled the cattle to be sold, separating the best 200 head from the rest of the herd. Supplies were purchased and packed: food, bedrolls, medicine, ammunition. Horses were shod and checked for soundness. James hired 2 additional drovers for the journey, experienced men he had worked with before. The night before they were set to leave, Roselyn lay in bed, unable to sleep. She was excited and nervous in equal measure. This would be her first real test as a ranch hand, her chance to prove she belonged in this life she had chosen. A soft knock at her door made her sit up. "Yes, it is me." James's voice came through the door. "Can I come in?" "Of course." He entered carrying a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. "I have something for you. An early birthday gift, I suppose, though I do not actually know when your birthday is." "November 15th. "What is this?" She took the bundle, unwrapping it to reveal a gun belt with a beautifully tooled holster and a new Colt revolver. The leather was supple and clearly expensive, the gun itself a work of art. "For the drive," James said. "I know you have your rifle, but you need a sidearm too. This is a good gun, reliable. I had the holster made special, sized for your height." Roselyn ran her fingers over the tooling, which featured a pattern of roses and vines. "James, this must have cost a fortune. I cannot accept this." "Yes, you can. Call it a practical necessity. Everyone on the drive needs a sidearm." He sat beside her on the bed. "Besides, I wanted you to have something beautiful. Something that shows you are not just another hired hand. You are important to me." She set the gun belt aside and turned to him. "Stay with me tonight, just to sleep, to hold me. I do not want to be alone." James hesitated only a moment before nodding. "All right, but just sleeping. I will not compromise your reputation." "My reputation as what? A woman who works in trousers and does cattle drives." She laughed softly. "James, I appreciate the sentiment, but I stopped caring about conventional propriety when I chose to work on a ranch. Even so." He pulled off his boots and lay down beside her, pulling her into his arms. "I respect you too much to rush this. When we finally make love, it will be as husband and wife, with all the time in the world and no worries." Roselyn felt warmth spread through her chest. "Is that a proposal?" "Not yet. But it is coming, I promise you." He kissed her forehead. "Now sleep. We have a long day tomorrow." She nestled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and finally drifted off to sleep, feeling safer than she had in months. The drive began at dawn with a flurry of activity. Miguel and Charlie took point, leading the herd south while James and the other drovers rode flanks, keeping the cattle together. Roselyn rode drag with Robert, the dustiest and least glamorous position, but she did not complain. Every job on a drive was important. The first few days were hard but uneventful. The cattle moved well, the weather held, and they made good progress. Roselyn learned to read the herd's mood, to spot when a steer was thinking about breaking away, to use her voice and her horse's movements to guide them. She fell into her bedroll each night exhausted but satisfied, and woke each morning sore but determined. James checked on her constantly, earning teasing from the other hands about being overprotective, but Roselyn did not mind. She liked knowing he cared, liked seeing the relief in his eyes each time he confirmed she was all right. On the 5th day, they reached the Gila River. It was running higher than expected from late summer rains, and James called a halt while he and Miguel scouted for the best crossing point. "It is deep," Miguel reported when they returned. "Maybe chest high on the horses at the deepest point. Current is strong but manageable if we are careful." James nodded grimly. "We will cross in groups. Miguel, you take the first 20 head and break trail. Charlie and I will bring the next group. Robert and Roselyn, you wait with the rest until we signal that it is safe." "I should go with the first group," Roselyn protested. "Get it over with." "No, you cross with me where I can see you." James's tone left no room for argument. "Remember our agreement." She wanted to argue but held her tongue. He was right, they had agreed she would listen when he said something was dangerous. The first crossing went well. Miguel and his group made it across without incident, the cattle swimming strongly, the horses finding their footing on the far bank. Charlie's group had more trouble. One steer panicked and tried to turn back, creating chaos, but they eventually made it through. Then it was their turn. James positioned himself next to Roselyn as they entered the water, his horse strong and steady. The current hit them immediately, powerful and cold. Roselyn's horse snorted nervously but kept moving forward, following the cattle in front of them. Halfway across, disaster struck. A massive log came floating downstream, moving fast in the current. It slammed into one of the steers, which bellowed and thrashed, starting a panic. Cattle began pushing in all directions, and horses struggled to keep their footing. "Roselyn, head for shore," James shouted over the chaos. "Now." She tried, but her horse was hemmed in by panicking cattle. Then a steer crashed into them, and she felt her horse going down. She managed to kick free of the stirrups as they went into the water, the current grabbing her immediately. The world became a confusion of water and noise. Roselyn fought to keep her head above water, her heavy boots and clothes dragging at her. She could hear James shouting her name but could not see him. A large piece of driftwood rushed past, and she grabbed for it instinctively, managing to get her arms over it. Using the wood for flotation, she kicked hard toward the far shore. The current carried her downstream, away from the crossing point, but at least she was moving in the right general direction. Her lungs burned, her arms ached, but she kept kicking. Finally, her feet touched bottom. She staggered onto the shore and collapsed on the muddy bank, coughing up river water. Hands grabbed her, pulling her further from the water. James's face appeared above her, pale with fear. "Roselyn, are you hurt? Can you breathe?" She coughed more water and nodded weakly. "I am all right. Just swallowed half the river." He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. She felt him shaking and realized he was terrified. "I thought I lost you, when I saw your horse go down when you went under the water." "I am all right," she repeated, holding him just as tightly. "I am all right, James." Miguel appeared with a blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Get her warm, I will check on the herd." James helped her stand on shaky legs and guided her to a spot away from the river where Robert had already started a fire. "Sit here. Get warm. Did you hit your head? Are you hurt anywhere?" "Just bruised, I think." Now that the adrenaline was fading, Roselyn could feel aches and pains all over. "My horse," made it out fine, the contrary beast, lost her rider but saved herself. James sat beside her, keeping his arm around her shoulders. "You were so calm. How were you so calm?" "I was not calm. I was terrified." She leaned against him. "But my father taught me to swim when I was young. He said anyone living near water needed to know how. And I remembered what you said about listening when you said something was dangerous. So I focused on getting to shore instead of panicking." "Remind me to thank your father when I meet him in heaven," James said, attempting humor though his voice was still shaky. They lost 3 steers in the crossing and had to spend the rest of the day rounding up scattered cattle. Roselyn changed into dry clothes and insisted on helping, though James wanted her to rest. By evening, they had regrouped, made camp on the far side of the river and taken stock of the losses. "Could have been worse," Miguel said philosophically as they ate dinner. "We still have most of the herd. Nobody died. That was a bad crossing." "It was my fault," James said grimly. "I should have waited another day, found a better spot." "The log came out of nowhere, boss," Charlie said. "You could not have predicted it. Sometimes things just happen." But James was quiet and withdrawn for the rest of the evening. After the others had turned in, Roselyn found him sitting away from the fire, staring into the darkness. "You are blaming yourself," she said, sitting beside him. "I almost got you killed." "No, a random log and bad luck almost got me killed. You kept me as safe as you could." She took his hand. "James, look at me." He turned reluctantly. "I am alive. I am safe. Yes, it was scary, but we are all fine. This is the reality of cattle drives, of life out here. Things go wrong sometimes. But we survived, and tomorrow we keep going." "I cannot lose you," he repeated, his voice raw. "Roselyn, you are everything to me. If something happened to you—" "Nothing happened. I am right here." She cupped his face, making him meet her eyes. "I love you. I am not going anywhere. We are going to finish this drive, sell these cattle, and go home. Then we are going to build a life together. That is what is going to happen." James pulled her close, and she felt the tension slowly leave his body. "You are right. You are right. I know you are. I know." She held him in the darkness, under the vast canopy of stars, and let him process his fear in silence. The rest of the drive was uneventful by comparison. They reached Tucson 8 days after the river crossing, tired and dusty but successful. The cattle sold for a good price, and James handled the business with the railroad efficiently. Roselyn stayed with the herd, helping to load them into stock cars, and marveled at the size and bustle of the town. "It is not much compared to eastern cities," James said as they walked through Tucson streets, "but it is growing. Railroad is bringing more people every day." "It is bigger than anywhere I have been," Roselyn admitted. "Look at all these stores, these buildings. We should get supplies before we head back." They spent a day in Tucson, restocking provisions and enjoying the novelty of restaurant meals and soft beds at the hotel. James also bought Roselyn a new hat, a beautiful dove gray felt with a leather band that fit her perfectly. "You cannot keep buying me things," she protested, though she was already adjusting the hat on her head. "I can and I will," James said firmly. "Let me spoil you a little. After that river crossing, you have earned every bit of spoiling I can manage." On their last evening in town, James took her to a small restaurant where they could have a private meal. Over steaks and potatoes, he seemed nervous, fidgeting with his fork in a way that was very unlike him. "Are you all right?" Roselyn asked. "I am perfect. Better than perfect." He set down his fork and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "I have been carrying this around for a week, trying to find the right moment. Then I realized there is no perfect moment. There is just you and me and what we feel for each other." Roselyn's heart started pounding as he opened the box to reveal a simple gold ring with a small but beautiful diamond. "Roselyn Zimmerman, you walked into my life when I did not even know I was lonely. You brought light and laughter and purpose in ways I never expected. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, the mother of my children if we are blessed with them? Will you build a life with me on the broken arrow?" Tears were streaming down Roselyn's face, but she was smiling. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes. I love you, James Irving. I want all of that. All of it." He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and then he was around the table, pulling her to her feet and kissing her while the other diners applauded. Roselyn did not care who was watching. She kissed him back with all the love and joy and relief she felt. This man who had saved her, who had given her a new life, who had become her whole world. "When?" she asked when they finally broke apart. "As soon as possible. Tomorrow if we can find a minister. I do not want to wait." "Neither do I." They were married the next morning in a small church in Tucson, with Miguel, Charlie, and Robert as witnesses. Roselyn wore a simple blue dress bought from a shop on the main street, and James wore his best shirt and freshly cleaned trousers. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Roselyn felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was where she was meant to be, not in the life she had lost, but in this new life she had found. With this man who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. They spent their wedding night at the hotel, and James was gentle and patient, making sure Roselyn felt loved and cherished. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the soft bed, talking quietly about their future. "I want to expand the ranch," James said, playing with her hair. "Maybe get into horse breeding alongside the cattle. We could build a bigger house, have room for children." "How many children?" Roselyn asked, amused. "As many as you want to give me. 3, 4, a dozen." "Let us start with one and see how it goes," she said, laughing. "But I like the idea of horse breeding. We have the land for it, and Miguel knows everything there is to know about horses. We could make it one of the best ranches in the territory," James said, his voice full of enthusiasm. "Not the biggest, but the best, known for quality stock and fair dealing." "I like that ambition." Roselyn turned in his arms to face him. "We will build something good together, something lasting." "We already have," James said, kissing her softly. "Everything else is just details." They returned to the Broken Arrow as husband and wife, and the ranch hands threw them a celebratory dinner. Miguel had somehow procured a bottle of good whiskey, and they toasted the new marriage late into the night. "I knew it," Charlie said, slightly drunk and grinning. "First time I saw you two together, I told Robert, I said, that man is a goner. She's going to have him roped and tied before the summer is out." "You did not say that," Robert protested. "Did too. I saw the way he looked at her." "The way I still look at her," James said, pulling Roselyn close against his side. "My beautiful, brave, stubborn wife." "Your wife who can outshoot you," Roselyn added, and everyone laughed. The next month settled into a happy routine. James and Roselyn moved into the master bedroom together, and she set about making the house a real home. She sewed curtains, arranged furniture, filled vases with wildflowers. The account books were always up to date, the garden flourished, and the ranch prospered. In November, just before her 23rd birthday, Roselyn realized she had missed her monthly courses. She waited another week to be sure, then told James over breakfast, "I think I am pregnant." James dropped his fork, staring at her. "You think? Are you sure? How do you know?" "I am not completely sure, but all the signs are there. We should probably get a doctor to confirm." She watched his face anxiously. "Are you happy about this?" "Happy." James stood so quickly his chair fell over. He swept her up in his arms, spinning her around. "I am thrilled." "We are going to have a baby." Miguel poked his head in from the kitchen. "Everything all right in here?" "Roselyn is pregnant," James announced. "We are having a baby. Congratulations, boss, Mrs. Irving." Miguel smiled broadly. "This is wonderful news." The doctor from Fort Bowie confirmed it a week later. Roselyn was about 2 months along, healthy and strong. The baby would come sometime in June. James became impossibly protective, trying to prevent her from doing any heavy work. Roselyn tolerated it for about a week before putting her foot down. "I am pregnant, not made of glass. I can still work, still ride, still live my life. But what if something happens? What if you overexert yourself? Then I will rest." "But James, You cannot treat me like an invalid for the next 7 months. I will go mad, and so will you." They compromised. Roselyn would continue with bookkeeping, cooking, and light ranch work, but no more breaking horses or moving cattle. She grumbled about the restrictions but secretly appreciated his concern. As winter turned to spring, her belly grew. James would sit with her in the evenings, his hand resting on her stomach, marveling at every kick and movement. "What do you want?" he asked one night. "A boy or a girl?" "Healthy," Roselyn said firmly. "That is all that matters. Healthy is good, but if you could choose," she considered. "A boy, maybe. Someone to help you run the ranch, to carry on what you have built." "I would like a girl," James admitted, "with your eyes and your stubborn streak. Someone to wrap me around her little finger from day one." "We will love whoever comes," Roselyn said, taking his hand. "Boy or girl, this baby is already so loved." In late May, as Roselyn's due date approached, James hired a midwife from Fort Bowie to stay at the ranch. Mrs. Patterson was an experienced, no-nonsense woman who had delivered half the babies in the territory. "You look healthy, strong," she told Roselyn after examining her. "You should have an easy birth. First babies can take a while, but you are built for this." Roselyn hoped she was right. As the days ticked by, she became increasingly uncomfortable, her back aching, her sleep fitful. James fussed over her constantly, bringing her tea, arranging pillows, reading to her in the evenings. "You are going to be such a good father," she told him one night. "I am going to try," he said seriously. "I want to be the kind of father mine was: patient, kind, teaching by example. I want our children to feel loved and safe. They will. With you as their father, how could they not?" Labor started on a warm June evening, just as the sun was setting. Roselyn's water broke while she was helping Miguel shell peas on the porch, and within minutes, the contractions began. Mrs. Patterson took charge immediately, getting Roselyn into bed and barring James from the room. "This is women's work," she said firmly. "You can pace outside like every other expectant father, but I want to be with her, and you will be after. Right now, let me do my job." James did pace, wearing a path in the floorboards while Miguel, Charlie, and Robert tried to distract him with cards and conversation. Inside, Roselyn labored through the night, Mrs. Patterson coaching her through contractions, offering water and encouragement. It was hard, harder than anything Roselyn had ever done. The pain was incredible, wave after wave crashing over her. But she focused on the end goal: her baby, the child she and James had created together. "You are doing wonderfully," Mrs. Patterson said. "Not much longer now. I can see the head." With a final, tremendous effort, Roselyn pushed, and suddenly the pressure released. A baby's cry filled the room, strong and indignant. "It is a boy," Mrs. Patterson announced, cleaning the baby quickly and laying him on Roselyn's chest. "A perfect, healthy boy." Roselyn looked down at the tiny, squalling infant and felt her heart expand impossibly. He was red-faced and furious, his little fists waving, dark hair plastered to his head. He was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "Hello, little one," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Hello, my son." Mrs. Patterson opened the door and called for James. He burst into the room, his eyes wild, and froze when he saw Roselyn holding the baby. "Come meet your son," Roselyn said softly. James approached slowly, reverently, as if afraid to disturb them. When he saw the baby's face, his expression crumpled. "He is perfect." "Roselyn, he is absolutely perfect. Sit here." She made room on the bed. "Hold him." With shaking hands, James took his son, cradling the tiny body against his chest. The baby stopped crying almost immediately, as if he recognized his father's voice. "Hey there, little man," James said, his voice choked with emotion. "I am your papa. I have been waiting so long to meet you." Roselyn watched them together, her husband and her son, and felt a peace she had never known. This was her family. This was her life. Everything she had lost, all the pain and fear and grief, had led her to this moment. "What should we name him?" James asked. "I want to name him after my father," Roselyn said. "Richard. Richard James Irving." James looked up with shining eyes. "That is perfect. Hello, Richard. Welcome to the family." Little Richard grew quickly, a healthy, happy baby who filled the house with his presence. He had Roselyn's green eyes and James's stubborn chin, and both parents doted on him shamelessly. "He smiled at me," James would announce with wonder. "Did you see?" "He definitely smiled." "He has gas," Roselyn would respond, but she would be smiling too. Miguel became an honorary grandfather, making wooden toys and telling stories. Charlie and Robert competed to make the baby laugh. The entire ranch revolved around this new little life. When Richard was 6 months old, Roselyn realized she was pregnant again. James's reaction was somehow even more enthusiastic than the first time. "Another baby. Richard is going to have a brother or sister. We might want to think about building that bigger house," Roselyn said wryly. "We are running out of room." They broke ground on an addition that winter, adding 3 bedrooms and a proper dining room. By the time Roselyn gave birth to their daughter, Emma, the following summer, the expansion was complete. Emma was a tiny, delicate baby with James's eyes and a thick shock of dark hair. She was quieter than Richard had been, more observant, and she had her father wrapped around her finger from the moment she was born. "I told you," Roselyn said, watching James rock Emma to sleep. "A little girl to own your heart. She can have it," James said simply. "She and Richard and you. My whole heart belongs to my family." The years that followed were full and happy. The ranch prospered, becoming known throughout the territory for quality horses and honest dealing. They added on to the house again when Roselyn got pregnant with their 3rd child, and then a 4th. Thomas came 2 years after Emma, a wild, energetic boy who kept everyone on their toes. And finally, little Sarah arrived, completing their family when Roselyn was 28. 4 children, a thriving ranch, and a marriage built on love and mutual respect. It was more than Roselyn had ever dreamed of having. Sometimes she would stand on the porch watching her children play in the yard, James working with horses in the corral, and marvel at how far she had come from that desperate, broken woman who had stumbled into Fort Bowie. On their 10th wedding anniversary, James presented her with a beautiful necklace, a delicate gold chain with a small diamond pendant. "To replace the one you lost," he said, fastening it around her neck. "I know it cannot replace what belonged to your mother, but I wanted you to have something special." Roselyn touched the pendant, tears in her eyes. "It is perfect. Thank you." They stood together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. The children were in bed, the ranch was quiet, and it was just the 2 of them, like it had been in the beginning. "Do you ever regret it?" James asked quietly. "The life you might have had if things had been different?" Roselyn turned to look at him, this man who had given her everything. "Not for a single moment. That life was never meant to be mine. This is where I belong, with you, with our children on this land. Everything I lost led me to you, and I would not change a thing." James pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I love you, Roselyn Irving. I love you too." Years continued to pass, bringing their share of challenges and triumphs. Drought years tested their resolve, but they weathered them. Cattle prices fluctuated, but they adapted. The children grew, each developing their own personalities and dreams. Richard, serious and responsible even as a child, showed an aptitude for ranching that made his father proud. He spent every free moment with James, learning to read the land, to judge cattle, to make the hard decisions a rancher had to make. Emma, gentle and creative, loved the horses more than anything. By the time she was 12, she was helping Miguel train the young stock, showing a natural gift for gentling even the most difficult animals. Thomas, wild and adventurous, kept everyone on edge with his daring stunts and boundless energy. But he had a good heart and a fierce loyalty to his family. And Sarah, the baby, charmed everyone she met with her sunny disposition and quick wit. She followed her mother everywhere, learning to cook, to garden, to manage the household accounts. When Richard turned 18, James officially made him a partner in the ranch. "The broken arrow belongs to all of us," he said at the family dinner celebrating the occasion. "But Richard has earned his place as a full partner. I am proud of the man you have become, son." Richard, now taller than his father and broad through the shoulders from years of hard work, flushed with pride. "Thank you, Pa. I will not let you down." "You never have," James said firmly. As Roselyn watched her family gathered around the table, her husband, her children, the ranch hands who had become like family, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This life, this family, this love, it was everything. Later that night, alone with James in their bedroom, she said, "We did it. We built something good." "We did," James agreed, pulling her into his arms. "And it keeps getting better." The Arizona Territory officially became a state in 1912, and the Irvings celebrated along with everyone else in Fort Bowie. Roselyn was 56 by then, her dark hair shot through with silver, lines on her face from years of sun and laughter. James was 59, moving a bit slower but still strong, still capable. Their children were grown now, building their own lives. Richard had married a sweet girl from Fort Bowie and was running much of the ranch's day-to-day operations. Emma had married one of the neighboring ranchers and split her time between the two properties, still working with horses. Thomas had joined the army, much to his mother's worry, but was doing well. And Sarah was engaged to a young lawyer who had moved to Fort Bowie to open a practice. Where did the time go? Roselyn wondered one evening as she and James sat on the porch, watching the sunset as they had done countless times before. "I have no idea," James admitted. "Feels like yesterday you walked into my life, covered in dust and determined to survive. Now look at us, old and gray, surrounded by children and grandchildren." They had 5 grandchildren now, with more on the way. The broken arrow had never been more prosperous, the house never more full of life and love. "I would not change a thing," Roselyn said, taking his hand. "Not one single thing. Not even the hard parts. The river crossing, the droughts, the close calls. Not even those. They made us who we are. They taught us we could survive anything as long as we had each other." James brought her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "I love you, Roselyn Irving. I have loved you since the day I found you, and I will love you until my last breath. And beyond that, I hope," Roselyn said softly, "because one lifetime does not feel like enough." "Then we will have eternity," James promised. "You, me, and the love we built. That is forever." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Somewhere in the house, they could hear grandchildren laughing, Richard discussing plans for the spring roundup, the comfortable sounds of family and home. Roselyn thought back to that desperate woman who had whispered that she had lost everything. She had been so wrong. She had not lost everything, she had just been between chapters, between the life that ended and the one that was waiting to begin. "I found you," she said quietly, echoing James's words from that first day. "Or you found me. Either way, I am keeping you." James smiled, the same warm smile that had made her fall in love with him all those years ago. "Deal, forever and always." And there, on the porch of the Broken Arrow Ranch, under the vast Arizona sky, they sat together. Two people who had built a life from loss, a family from loneliness, and a love that would endure for generations to come. The ranch would continue, passed down to their children and grandchildren, the legacy of a rancher and the woman who found him when she thought she had nothing left to find. Everything had fallen into place exactly as it was meant to, and Roselyn Zimmerman Irving, who had once lost everything, now had more than she had ever dreamed possible. She had love, family, home, and purpose. She had a life filled with meaning and a future secured by the strong foundation she and James had built together. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Roselyn leaned against her husband's shoulder, grateful for every moment that had led her here, to this place, to this man, to this beautiful life. She had been broken once, shattered by loss and grief. But she had been rebuilt stronger and better by love and determination and the steady presence of the man beside her. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" James asked. "For being there that day, for offering me your hand, for giving me a reason to keep going when I thought I had none." "You would have found a way regardless," James said. "You are the strongest person I know, but I am grateful every day that you chose to walk this path with me." They remained on the porch long after the last light faded from the sky, two souls intertwined, two hearts beating as one. The story that had begun in loss and desperation had transformed into one of hope and triumph. And as Roselyn closed her eyes, surrounded by the sounds of her family and the land she loved, she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The Broken Arrow Ranch would stand for generations, a testament to what could be built when two people joined their lives with love, respect, and unwavering commitment. And every child born into the Irving family would hear the story of how their grandmother walked into Fort Bowie with nothing, met their grandfather, and built an empire of love and legacy that would endure through the ages. This was not just a happy ending. This was a happy life, lived fully and completely, with all the joy and sorrow and ordinary miracles that make existence meaningful. And when Roselyn and James eventually passed, many years later, they did so knowing they had lived well, loved deeply, and left the world better than they found it. Their story would be told around dinner tables and campfires for years, to come, the tale of the rancher who offered his hand to a desperate woman and found his soulmate, and the woman who had lost everything only to discover that sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to find everything that truly matters.